Jerry falls in the closet. My dad started getting old, and he started having started getting some dementia, started being senile dementia. I'm not sure what everything, but he would repeat himself a lot. Maybe it was some Alzheimer's, but I think it was. Most people say it was mostly a dementia. But anyway, he had to. We moved a lot of his stuff out of his house down to our place where it would be safe in the shed and so forth. And but he got worse and worse. And I'd go up and I'd fix him sandwiches and I'd help him get cleaned up and showered. And showering was really a tough experience because he was very had all kinds of contaminants all over him. It was very rough. But I got some tools that helped me, some scrubbing brushes and big long stick scrubbing brushes that helped. But he was just goofy. I'd go up and make him 2 or 3 sandwiches, and I'd come up later and he wouldn't even eaten those sandwiches. I probably didn't. I'm sure I didn't realize how bad he was. But knowing him from the past, he was always kind of defiant in his own way and do whatever he wanted anyway. So there was kind of a blurry line between the dementia and his real self. And sometimes those overlap so much that it was hard to tell who was he really at that particular time. So we hadn't heard from him for a while. I tried to call him, no answer. Tried to get a hold of him, no answer. So me and Starley decided we're going to go up to the house and see if we can go see how he's doing. Well, anyway, we get up to the house and the doors are locked. There's no answer. We can't call him. We can't get through to him. Nothing. So anyway, I called a what do they call it? A locksmith, and they came up and they unlocked the doors and got us in. And then when I went, I said, Dad, you could hear him screaming in the other room. Anyway, and I'm like, what's going on? So me and Starley walk in the other room, and he was, his bed was here, but then his restroom was right here, but then he had this big wide open closet with, 2 doors. One door was open and one door was shut. Well, somehow he was walking and he fell into the closet. So his head was right up against the closet wall. His knees were up like this, and he couldn't get out of the closet. He had been there for probably a day or two, and he was just filthy. He had defecated on himself and so forth. He was just sweaty and stinky, and he was just really confused, really messed up. Anyway, it was just really, really sad that he fell in like that. But he fell in on his shoes and stuff, and he just couldn't get out. It was a very difficult experience for him. So we called, his lights. That's the other thing. I think his lights were off because he never paid his power bills or something like that. But anyway, we ran the generator, got some lights in there and so forth, and then I went and stayed with him that night. I don't know if Stardy was there or not, but anyway, I can't remember all the details, but I slept in my room on the floor like I did when I was a kid. It was a very uncomfortable night because Dad was in moaning and screaming and upset and frustrated and really confused. Well, he was dehydrated, and my sister Allison said, we need to get him to the hospital tomorrow. So we took him to the hospital the next day, and he refused to go to the hospital with the paramedics the night before. Anyway, we got him up to the hospital, and they started taking care of him. And anyway, so he fell in the closet. He couldn't get out, and luckily, Starley and I, if we would have waited, let's just say we would have said, "Oh, Dad's not responding," and went a couple days later, he probably would have passed away. But Allison saved his life. We always tease Allison, "You saved his life," and that was very difficult for us because you were a hero and you saved his life. We had to put up with him for 3 or 4 or 5 more years, whatever it was. Anyway, it was difficult. He was difficult, but I'm very glad that my sister saved his life by saying, "Let's take him to the hospital." He did fall that night, the night that he was the night that I stayed with him after we found him in the closet that night. I stayed with him, and he fell out of the bed one more time, and I had to try to get him up there, but I couldn't get him up there. He was just really, really confused and really, really out of it. So anyway, I'm glad that we found him, but what a sad thing. I'm sure he would just go. I'm sure he was always a man who liked to be clean and well-dressed and very proud of how he dressed and so forth, and was embarrassed that he, had a labor-intensive job like on the railroad. He was embarrassed of the railroad job, I think. He liked it, but he was sort of embarrassed of it. He wanted to be classier, and then towards the end of his life, he wasn't very classy. he had too much dementia and he would do odd things. And anyway, but I'm glad that we were able to find him in the closet there and help him out that night.